damn. Can you imagine just having your arm twisted round and round like that? Man, Kenpachi got effed up in this chapter. Not only by the composer, but of course, Mayuri Kuratsuchi. Let's get this motivator started. Everybody, welcome back to another Bleach chapter review with me, Captain Vibes. Today's We Live Action. You already know what it is. This is Bleach chapter 636 titled Sensitive Monster. And you know what, reading the chapter title, you know what, it made me think of my ex. Yeah. But we've all read the chapter. We know what happened. We know the highlight of the chapter. But I'm not here to talk about that. Yes, I'm going to discuss it, but to me that wasn't the main highlight of the chapter. Now, one thing I really liked about this chapter, yeah, of course, we seen Yumachika, Ikaku, and Nemu, and yes, she spoke on her own, you know, and Yumachika and Ikaku, they were surprised by that. But I liked how the composer went ahead and attacked Kenpachi while Mayuri and Kenpachi are still sitting there trying to figure out what the hell is this thing's ability. Some people call it a she, some people call it a he. I'm just going to call it this thing and it, you know. But I like that because in so many animes, including Bleach at times, they're just standing there and talking and talking. This is a war, and they're fighting to the death. If I see my two opponents and they're here to kill me, and I can attack them from afar, then yeah, I'm gonna do that. You know, like, okay, that's the distance that you're at. I'm gonna go ahead and try to kill you ASAP. And out of nowhere, of course, the highlight of the chapter, so many people will believe, is when Kenpachi's arm started spinning. Out of nowhere. And if you notice in the upper right-hand panel, it looks like the blade was coming towards him, you know, because the blade was facing this way. Maybe it was just spinning just out of control. That's just how it looked, but it looked like he was geared to just go right into his face. And at that point, yes, he goes on to rip off his own arm. Just rip the motivator off. Just straight ripped it off. Now, Kenpachi is my second favorite captain, but you know what? Seeing that, I mean, come on, you cannot deny the fact that as they say, badass. I mean, to rip, it's not only he ripped it off, his expression, like it was nothing. He ripped it off, no grinning of the teeth, no sweating, no pantsing, no nothing. I mean, he just ripped it off. And when it went on the ground, when he threw it on the ground, he stepped on it and applied the Zanpakuto out of his own dead, well, ripped off our hands. And it's the thing, the fingers, you seen the fingers still connected to the hilt of the Zanpakuto. Very gruesome chapter indeed. And it was like nothing to him. Nothing. Of course, Nemu goes on to patch up the blood under Mayuri's orders. But we see, of course, Kenpachi, he goes on to attack this thing because he tries to figure, like, you know what, we don't know the ability of this thing, so why don't I just go ahead and cut it down? That's all Kenpachi knows. That's what he knows best. We know Kenpachi does not use Kido. I don't think he knows Kido. If he does know Kido, he will refuse to use it, you know, so that's what he knows best. Of course, Mayuri, he goes on to tell Kenpachi there are more ways to take down this enemy than just slashing like a brute, like a barbarian. But see, Mayuri and Kenpachi, they are two opposites. Two opposites. Personality, of course, background, ability, power, tactics, everything. And that's what Kenpachi knows. But one thing I did notice when he goes to attack the compulsory and he slices straight down, you see the crack, the snap in his legs, his knees. They go on and just... And one thing I noticed about that, Kenpachi, you see his face then. That really hurt. And we see Yumachika and Ikaku, they are shocked. You know, that really hurt Kenpachi. We see the fact that that dropped him. But Mayuri, becoming frustrated with Kenpachi, he stabs him with his Shikai. Ashizogi Jizo. Just stabs him. And it paralyzes him. But he noticed it also affects the composer. But because when he stabs him, he takes the thumb and stabs in Ashizogi Jizo's eye with his thumb, and you see the blood, and you see this Zanpakuto is screaming, and the noise it makes. Nemu tells Yumachika and Ikaku to cover your ears or you'll go deaf for 4 seconds. And at that point, when Mayuri noticed the pattern, like, oh, okay, he basically figures the ability out, you know, of the compulsory. And that's just like Mayuri to do so. You know, he figures it out. Basically, you know, the compulsory he uses his nerves. Forces his nerves into his opponent and controls the limbs. And Mayuri, he early on in the chapter tells Kenpachi that it was smart that he ripped off the arm, because if not doing that, his whole body was just got twisted up to mush of meatballs, you know. Now, overall to me, the chapter, it was good, even though to a lot of people it is predictable. You know, this chapter was predictable due to the fact that, oh, of course Mayuri was going to figure out the ability. Oh, of course Kenpachi was going to be a brute and just charge into battle. But let's look at the main thing that I noticed in this chapter, the way it was a setup. First thing first, when Juon's elites were introduced, and we started seeing the different, we haven't seen all the abilities of each of those elites, but with compulsory, it was much of a mystery, you know, like the way we started to see the abilities of this thing. And then with the Bone standing with the wings, the way it broke down all the trees, you know, the barrier, that right there, it made me realize, like, you know what, out of all the characters that's going to fight this thing, I knew Mayuri was going to be a matchup. But Mayuri was not there when that thing jacked up Yoruichi. Mayuri did not have the chance to see the abilities of that thing, excuse me, and pre-plan early on, like he's done in previous battles. You know, even though he came equipped with the liquid that he threw at the compulsory when the tendrils came out and went to attack Mayuri, and he threw the liquid and it really affected it, and he said, oh, the nerves are exposed. Because the thing is, with this thing, Kenpachi was basically the setup, the test subject of the chapter. Because let's face it, Kenpachi, yes, he's a strong opponent. We see when he was going up against Grimmy, he survived the whole weapons layout of Call of Duty and Battlefield when Grimmy shot all the guns. He slashed away lava. He was put in water, put in the pocket dimensional space. He was crushed in the ground. All those things, you know, survived that. However, he was down and out by, of course, having his limb snapped like that, getting stabbed and paralyzed. He was down. Now let's flip the script. If Mayuri, it was to attack him head on like that and get taken down like that, he would have been down and out. We would not have had no one to be able to point out and explain the abilities. Kenpachi sure as hell wouldn't have done it. I don't think Shinji. I don't think Shunsui. You know, I don't think Ichigo and friends would be able to figure out his ability. So basically, that whole Kenpachi and Mayuri setup, I was looking forward to a good side-by-side battle. But basically, Kenpachi was just to set up to show the compulsory's powers. That's all he was. So now he's down and out for the rest of this fight. I'm sorry. He's down and out. I mean, true enough, we see when he ripped off the arm, that was not going to stop him from still attacking. But now the legs, now he can't walk. Even if he would have still been able to get up, not get up, but even if he would have tried to crawl towards the compulsory, come on now, still. I love Kenpachi, but he's hella strong, but we know at that point, he can't walk, and having one arm, it'd have been no point. No point at all. I mean, hell, even with him charging in like that, after he ripped off the arm, he can't do kendo. But Kubo, that goes back to Kubo with the arms. I haven't watched Tekken's review yet, but I'm pretty sure Tekken added that arm rip-off to the arm missing count all throughout Bleach. You know, I guess Kubo really hates arms. But, again, I guess for story writing purposes, he just chose compulsory to start with the arm. Or maybe to do the whole body, he has to start with the limb. Because why not do that with the head? Why not have Kenpachi's neck just, you know, just spin around like that? The same thing with Zamari. He goes on to admit if he looks at the head, you know, takes over the brain, control the whole body. He didn't do that. He wants to play around with the limbs and everything. So this kind of reminded me of the Byakuya and Zamari thing. You know, he looked at looked at Byakuya's leg, said, come, you know, made it, come, and then Byakuya cut the tendon, you know. And with Byakuya not being able to use the leg, Zamari wasn't able to use the leg. Same thing with the arm. So, but the little difference is, with the nerves being exposed like that, that's one of the potential weaknesses, because we still don't know all the abilities of this thing. And the next chapter is gonna bust out of that robe, which I can't wait to see. But Mayuri, he came equipped with those potions. He said he has a good amount of potions he can use on the nerds. And I wasn't too surprised by that, but basically this chapter a little bit predictable, but it was still enjoyable, because to be honest, there are certain matchups with characters you want to see mirrored, and then you want to see the complete opposite. But sometimes you have these abilities that just really overshadow brute strength, to where you have to have a different type of matchup. I love to see Kenpachi battles, but it has to be something against brute power or strength or force, just like with him and Grimmy. You know, Grimmy was doing destructive things. He wasn't thinking smart. How with the Chiru turned her bones into brittle cookies, you know. He didn't think that way with Kenpachi. He was trying to become a monster to take out a monster. But in this case, we have Kenpachi with this ability against brute force. There's no way brute force can win. There's no way. We've seen he did lay a strike on the thing in the last chapter, chapter 635. But we see the outcome of that. But now we have Mayuri versus this thing. But see, to me, what makes this battle with Mayuri very interesting, he doesn't have no real true data. He seemingly figured it out for the most part. This one part of the power, he figured it out, thanks to Kenpachi doing what he does. But other than that, I really think at the end of this battle, Mayuri is going to take some damage. He's going to be bleeding, panting, but then again, he may have some healing needles, or he may have Nemu, you know, so he may have something to bring his arm back, as usual. You know, things like that. But we see so far Grimmjow is down, Kenpachi is down. But I do think as far as Kenpachi's arm, we know, yep, or he may. Or maybe Mayuri will have something for his arm to come back. But he did say his power is still beneficial to them for this fight, you know, throughout the whole war. So I don't think Kenpachi is going to be down and out for the rest of the war, you know, rest of this fight, but maybe for a long time. Because I sure as hell was thinking, like, man, Kenpachi, this monster running around, going to run into someone. I honestly thought he was going to fight Star Knight M. I really did. So I think Star Knight M, he's going to run into Ichigo and friends. That's what I honestly think. So overall, Elites, good chapter. Kind of a fast read for me. A little bit predictable, but, you know, Kenpachi is just the setup to show off Kenpachi's powers. It's good that we got to see something new with Ashizoki Jizo. And I can't wait to see what Mayuri is going to do to kill this thing. And BG9 and Star Knight C, those two, and Grimm, you know, freaking Brain. I really want to see them backstories. When did Juai find them? How did he convince them to join? And I just don't think the composer is full human, you know. No, that thing to be represented as a Quincy, I don't know. So give me your thoughts, comments, and concerns, Elites. Thank you all for watching. I am dead tired because I'm doing this review straight after work, so I'll see you all next week with Bleach chapter 637. Signing out.